Here's the truth. He doesn't stay because of the perfect body or flawless makeup. He stays for something far rarer, something most women overlook. In bed, what he remembers isn't a move or a pose, it's the way you made him feel. When you're fully present, laughing, letting go of self-consciousness, you create a space where he can drop his guard. He's not chasing perfection, he's chasing connection. That's what makes him crave you long after the moment is over. It's not about putting on a show, it's about making him feel desired, safe, and completely accepted. And when a man feels that, no beauty in the world can compete. Quick question, have you ever noticed that the men who can't stop thinking about you weren't the ones you tried hardest to impress? Drop your story in the comments. I'm curious to know if you've felt this shift. You may think it's about positions or lingerie. You might believe it's about those moves she picked up from some magazine. But no, the truth is far more powerful and far more dangerous. The woman a man never forgets, the one who lingers in his mind long after the sheets have cooled, is the one who does something most women overlook. In the quiet psychology of male desire, there's a force even stronger than lust: emotional reverence. And when a woman understands this, when she touches his core with more than just her body, with her presence, her depth, her awareness, she doesn't just excite him, she leaves an imprint. This isn't about controlling him. It's about awakening something deep, ancient, and noble within him. When a woman brings her whole self into a man's space, something profound takes place. Something that goes beyond the physical and touches the psychological and spiritual layers of his being. Most people miss how powerful presence can be in a world crowded with distractions, performances, expectations, and comparisons. Being with someone who's fully there, heart and soul, without acting or pretending, is so rare that it becomes unforgettable. And men, contrary to the shallow stereotypes thrown at them, crave this presence more than they'd ever admit. For a man to feel safe enough to open up, to fully express himself emotionally and sexually, he must feel that the woman he's with isn't just playing a part or trying to tick off some fantasy list. He needs to sense that she's connecting with him from a place of conscious authenticity. And this begins with presence. Presence isn't about saying the perfect thing or doing something flawless. It's about keeping eye contact that doesn't drift. It's about breathing with him, not around him, and about a touch that says, "I'm here with you," not, "I'm trying to impress you." It's about being attuned to what's unfolding moment by moment, instead of projecting an outcome. When a woman carries this kind of energy, she unlocks something primal in a man, because deep down, he doesn't want a performance. Performances fade. They're rehearsed. They stay on the surface. What a man truly desires, what he secretly longs for, in the very core of his being, is an experience that feels real, unscripted, alive. Presence is the doorway to that reality. When a man feels a woman's undivided presence, he feels truly seen, not judged, not measured, not used, seen. And that sensation of being truly seen is more erotic and more meaningful than any act of seduction, because being seen affirms something in him that he might not have even known needed affirming: his humanity. The truth is, most men carry an inner quietness, a dullness, a protective shell, but when a woman meets him with her full presence, it speaks to him without words. You don't have to hold it all together right now. You can breathe, you can feel. That unspoken invitation is a doorway to emotional closeness that no technique can imitate. Being fully present also means not being trapped in your own head. Many women understandably carry insecurities into intimate moments. Thoughts like, does he enjoy this? Or do I look all right? Or am I enough? These thoughts, while normal, pull her out of the present. And men can sense it. Even if he can't explain it, he feels the gap. He notices she's partly there with him, but partly elsewhere, and that split changes the entire energy. It shifts the focus from connection to performance. But when she drops the internal chatter and just chooses to be, to breathe, to feel, to move from her body rather than her thoughts. She becomes magnetic. Her magnetism doesn't come from perfection but from being real, and realness is addictive. Presence also shows through responsiveness, not in a forced way but in an instinctive one. A present woman listens not just with her ears but with her entire being. She feels his breath, his pace, his energy. She matches it, flows with it, sometimes leads softly and sometimes surrenders. A rhythm builds when both are completely tuned into each other. And this rhythm isn't mechanical, it's alive. It forms a kind of sacred dance, one where both partners feel deeply in sync, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually. And in that sacred space, something more than physical intimacy appears. Soul contact. A woman who's truly present also respects the vulnerability of the moment, because intimacy, stripped of ego and performance, is one of the most tender human experiences. There's no mask to hide behind. When she meets him in that place, not with armor but with openness, not with pretense but with emotional honesty, she builds a safe space where love can genuinely flow. That's why she becomes unforgettable, because there's a safety in presence that nothing else can replace. When a man feels that safety, especially in such a raw and exposed moment, he bonds deeply, not just with his body but with his heart. It's in that bond that true connection takes root. Presence also means patience, letting the moment unfold naturally without rushing toward a finish line. It means letting go of the pressure to perform and simply savoring each breath and touch. For men, this kind of unhurried space feels freeing, because much of their world revolves around goals, results, and expectations. But in the arms of a woman who is fully present, time seems to slow. There's no keeping score, no pressure, just sensation, emotion, presence. That kind of experience heals, it restores, and it's rare. Presence is also magnetic because it calls the man to become present too. Her stillness pulls him out of his own head, out of old habits, out of the need to impress or control. It invites him to feel, and when he does, when he matches her presence with his own, the encounter shifts from physical to transcendent. That's when connection gets etched into his soul. That's when he falls not only into pleasure, but into deep reverence. And it all began not with a seductive trick or a practiced move, but with something far deeper, her decision to be fully, powerfully, and unapologetically present. When a woman silently affirms a man's masculinity, she connects with a part of him that the world often overlooks or suppresses. Masculinity in today's world has become complicated. Many men wander through life uncertain of how to live their natural instincts without judgment. They've been taught to tone down their power, or worse, to misuse it. But when he's with a woman who honors the sacredness of his masculine energy, who doesn't shame, correct, or compete with it, he feels something rare, peace in his own identity. And this happens most profoundly in intimate silence. She doesn't need to say, "You're strong," or "You're a man." He already knows that. What he seldom feels is permission to embody that strength without guilt. Yet, in the safety of her touch, in the softness of her openness, in the way she receives him without fear or tension, she gives that permission in the most sacred way. Her body tells him, "I trust you, I welcome you, I feel safe with you." And that silent trust becomes a mirror, reflecting back to him the part of himself he longs to reclaim, the primal protector, the noble lover, the man free to lead with honor rather than dominance. In that moment, he rises not because he's proving anything, but because she inspires him to simply be himself. A woman who grasps this truth doesn't try to control what happens. She doesn't micromanage or correct. She invites. She makes room. She allows his masculine essence to unfold, not as a show but as a gift. And in doing so, something remarkable happens. He feels recognized for his unique place in the connection. He doesn't feel used or merely accepted. He feels chosen, not just as a body, not merely as a man capable of performance, but as a masculine presence whose strength and depth are cherished. This kind of affirmation isn't passive, It calls for a woman deeply rooted in her feminine energy, not the shallow femininity of pretending or seduction, but the powerful femininity of openness, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence. When she embodies this, she becomes magnetic to the best version of the man before her. He doesn't have to shrink or overcompensate. He simply finds alignment, because her quiet acceptance grants him something he rarely experiences, the freedom to rest in his role and feel his own strength without guarding it. In intimacy, this often shows up as letting him guide the flow without over-directing. It means responding to his touch with genuine presence, not with scripted reactions. It means showing gratitude, not through forced compliments, but through emotion. Moans that aren't performed, responses that come naturally, eyes that don't look away when the intensity builds. These are the signals that bypass his ego and reach straight into his heart. Because no matter what people believe, men aren't numb. They aren't emotionally blind. They just aren't often given the kind of space where their emotional depth is honored. When a woman creates that kind of sanctuary, especially in intimacy, she becomes unforgettable. Affirming his masculinity also means letting him feel needed, not in a dependent way, but in a way that respects his natural emotional design. Men are wired to protect, to provide, to penetrate, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. When a woman invites him into her world, not just her body, but her heart, with reverence, she touches the deepest part of his nature. She awakens something ancient in him. He feels like a king, not because she treats him like royalty, but because she honors the archetype within him. She recognizes that being a man carries weight, responsibility, and fire. And she doesn't try to put that fire out. She lets it warm her. But this kind of affirmation takes wisdom. It's not about flattering every man or making herself small. It's about knowing when a man deserves that level of trust and giving it without explanation. When she does, it's like alchemy. Her softness draws out his strength. Her openness calls forth his protection. Her grace brings out his leadership. And suddenly, what might have been purely physical becomes symbolic. He's not just a man anymore. He's her man. And that's what makes him fall deeply, quickly, and lastingly. Even after the moment fades and the physical sensation passes, the feeling lingers. The memory of being accepted without shrinking, of being valued for his presence rather than his performance, that's what keeps him haunted by her, what pulls him back not just to her body, but to the version of himself that she brought out in him. In the end, men fall for the woman who makes them fall in love with themselves, not the ego-driven self, but the truest self, the protector, the leader, the lover. All it takes is a woman who knows how to affirm him without uttering a word. When she's emotionally naked, before she's physically naked, she invites him into a space beyond desire, into truth, the truth of who she is, unmasked, unguarded, with no pretense. For a man, this kind of vulnerability is disarming in the most beautiful way. In a world that constantly tells women to be polished, perfect, and performative, a woman who dares to be real, who allows herself to be emotionally raw, especially in moments leading to or during intimacy, doesn't just capture his eyes, she captures his soul. There's a silent power in emotional nakedness that no physical exposure can match. A man might see countless women undressed and feel nothing lasting, but the one who opens her heart, who lets him witness her fears, her longing, her trembling humanity, lives in his memory forever, because in that moment he doesn't just see her body, he sees her being. And when she allows that, when she chooses to be known instead of just looked at, he experiences something sacred. He feels trusted. Real trust is the bedrock of intimacy, not the surface trust built on time or politeness, but the deep, soul-level trust that whispers, "I am safe enough with you to show you who I truly am." It's a gift many men rarely receive. When a woman dares to offer that, when she lets him see not just her beauty but her struggles, not just her curves but her complexity, she creates an emotional gravity that makes the experience unforgettable. In those moments, he stops being just a man in bed. He becomes a man welcomed into something transcendent, the mystery of another soul. Emotional vulnerability might mean she whispers that she's nervous, or she laughs mid-moment 'cause joy overflows, or she tears up from the sheer intensity of the connection and lets him hold those tears. These are the moments etched into a man's heart, not because they're conventionally erotic, but because they're real. Real men are starving for that realness. Too often women are taught that to be desired they must be flawless, erasing all imperfections and projecting effortless sensuality. But illusions build walls. They keep him at a distance, creating performance instead of connection. While a performance might impress him for one night, authenticity stays with him for a lifetime. Because emotional nakedness doesn't ask to be desired, it asks to be felt. A man with depth will meet that request with reverence. This vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or unloading trauma. It's not about overwhelming him with confessions. It's about openness, about allowing him to see you, your real self, not the version you think he wants. The one who breathes deeper under his tender touch, whose eyes soften when she feels truly seen, who still carries hope, wonder, and occasional fear, and lets all of it live in the moment. When she brings that emotional honesty into the bedroom, she becomes more than a lover. She becomes a mirror. She shows him what courage looks like, not the courage to dominate or impress, but the courage to be seen. By giving him that gift, she subconsciously offers him permission to do the same. He drops his defenses, he slows down, he stops trying to impress and starts trying to connect, realizing this isn't just physical, it's soul meeting soul. Men are conditioned to believe vulnerability equals weakness, but when a woman models emotional courage in such a raw and intimate space, she rewrites that belief. She shows him that vulnerability is strength, that opening your heart and letting someone in during such closeness is among the bravest things a person can do. And that power doesn't look like control, it looks like truth. A man will never forget the woman who cried in his arms during intimacy and didn't apologize, who trembled with emotion instead of pretending composure, who let him see her not just in candlelight but in clarity, not just with her eyes but with her soul. That memory doesn't fade, it leaves a mark. And surprisingly, emotional nakedness, though scary at first, becomes liberating. When a woman stops needing to perform and chooses connection over control, she finds herself more powerful than she realized, not because she tries to seduce, but because she dares to be seen. This honesty, this radiant vulnerability, pulls him deeper than any act of seduction could. When a woman moves with a man rather than for him, she turns intimacy into a co-creation rather than a performance. The difference may seem subtle, but it's deeply psychological and magnetically spiritual. To move with him means she's attuned, responsive, fully alive in the moment they're sharing. She's not trying to do it right or act out what she assumes he wants. She isn't performing for approval or relying on a set of rehearsed moves. She's present, alive and flowing, reading the rhythm of his body and answering with her own instincts. To a man longing for genuine connection, this is breathtaking. Many women are taught that pleasing a man is about performance, technique, and exaggerated enthusiasm, often shaped by unrealistic images of desire. Yet most men, especially those who've grown beyond surface thrills, long not for control but for unity. What they truly crave is the feeling that the woman with them isn't there to perform but to share, to explore and join him in an unspoken dance. When she moves with him, she listens with her whole being. She feels the tension in his muscles, the rhythm of his breath, the warmth of his skin, and lets those cues guide her. She's not passive, she's deeply engaged, but her engagement comes from within. She's not asking, what does he want, but what do we want to create together in this moment? That subtle shift transforms everything. It moves the energy from performance to presence, from obligation to discovery. This kind of mutual engagement makes the entire experience rise to another level. It's both physical and emotional. Physically, her responses aren't just reflexive, They're alive and evolving with the moment. If he slows, she slows. If he builds intensity, she meets him there. There's no race, no destination, only flow. That flow becomes sacred because it honors both equally. It says, I'm with you, not beneath you. I'm here, not somewhere else. I'm not doing this for you, I'm doing this with you. Within that energy, a man feels something rare in intimacy, equality that still embraces polarity. Emotionally moving with him means allowing the moment to shape her, not controlling the experience, but surrendering to it. And that surrender isn't weakness, it's strength. It's the power of feminine presence that doesn't need to dominate or perform. It simply exists. And in that presence, his masculine energy rises. Not to overpower, but to hold, to protect, and to match hers. When she moves with him, she becomes like water, soft flowing and unresisting yet unshakably strong. She has no need to impress because her willingness to be fully present, open and without agenda leaves the deepest mark. Moving with him means letting go of fears, the fear of doing it wrong, of not being enough or of being too much. When she surrenders those fears, she shines. That glow isn't about perfection, it's about life, trust, and the beauty of an unscripted, real moment. That trust can be felt. It moves between them like a current, pulling him in and grounding him. It heals him because so many men walk through life unseen, untouched, and disconnected. Then, in the arms of a woman who meets him not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, he feels at home. He feels safe, chosen. Not because she performs or says the perfect words, but because she moves with him, responding to the unspoken rhythm of his essence. This memory is unforgettable because it's so rare, and rarity holds power. A man doesn't just remember her body, he remembers the feeling of being fully met, mirrored, and matched. That memory lives in him as longing, not for her touch alone, but for the soul-deep union he felt in her presence. A woman who understands the power of safe surrender carries the key to a man's deepest desire: to be trusted and entrusted with something sacred. True surrender is never weakness. It's not defeat or blind submission as the world distorts it. It's one of the most powerful gifts of intimacy. It wordlessly says, I trust you with all of me, my body, my fears, my desire, my soul. For a man who values depth and integrity, that trust shifts everything. Real surrender is not passive, it's intentional. It's the art of letting go without losing yourself, softening without collapsing, and opening to someone who has earned that trust. When a woman surrenders in this way, especially in intimacy, she awakens something in him no one else can. His protective nature rises, not from ego or entitlement, but from honor. He doesn't feel owed her trust. He feels grateful for it and longs to protect it as something precious. Safe surrender creates a space where both can finally rest. She is free from performing or holding everything together, and he is free from the relentless need to prove, conquer, or control. In this space, both release the roles the world demands of them, meeting in something honest and human. He no longer feels he must dominate to be respected, and she no longer feels she must resist to feel safe. Their energies flow like a graceful dance of strength and softness, direction and depth. Her body speaks an ancient language, breath slowing, muscles relaxing, touch becoming genuine. She stops doing and simply is, moving with trust and presence, which breaks through his armor.